Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everyone here at this beautiful masjid of MCC. This is my first time here. I'm actually not from the Bay. I am from North Carolina. You all have a beautiful community as far as I can see. It's always great to see a lot of kids running around in the masjid. That's how you know you have a great community, mashallah. Okay, so for time's sake, I'm just gonna dive right into it, but I do think that it bears mentioning before I go straight into the topic of Hindutva in tech that there is a broader political context that is lurking in the back of all of our minds, and I'm talking about the recent escalation between India and Pakistan. So I wanted to start out first and foremost by saying that we extend the deepest solidarity to all people who are affected anytime these governments kind of go at it, escalate these tensions between each other. And so my plea as well is to have you all remember the people who are the most deeply affected, the most vulnerable within these borders, who end up being the first victims of these types of tensions. With regards to the situation that Muslims in India face, I know I'm going to talk a lot about Hindutva, the ideology, Hindutva in the technological sector here in the United States, but I also first and foremost want to talk about the human impact of Hindu nationalism or Hindu supremacy, or as I'm going to refer to it today, Hindutva. And who better to talk about this ideology than its foremost victims, aka the Muslims who are living in India. So here I want to read to you a quote from a student activist named Afreen Fatima. She says, "We are trying to survive, we are trying to be brave, we are trying not to let hopelessness overcome us. This monstrous state has filled everyone with hate. Our humanity is being robbed." Similarly, you have student activist Umar Khalid, who has been in prison since 2020, where he says from his prison cell, after being arrested for his activism against the Indian government, "What is my fault? Is my fault that I say that this country is as much mine as it is yours?" For her activism, Afreen Fatima's home, her family home, her childhood home, was destroyed by government officials in 2022, and Umar Khalid remains seeking bail. He was arrested under India's draconian anti-terror law, under which it is almost impossible to obtain bail. And both these activists are coming from this broader context of violence and escalating calls for genocide against Indian Muslims. You can see here this headline is actually from a couple of years ago. I believe it was from around 2021, in which CNN reports that India's Hindu extremists are calling for genocide against Muslims, with little being done to stop them. Post Pahalgam, I do want to point out that post the attack on Indian tourists in Kashmir, a lot of the hatred that followed was actually impacting Muslims living in India. So between April 22nd and May 8th alone, 186 anti-Muslim incidents affected 316 victims, including 3 murders, calls for mass violence and economic boycott. Thousands of homes were demolished, and this also included the arrest of thousands of Indian Muslims who were then rendered homeless following these demolitions. There were also several crackdowns on press and free speech, with at least 8,000 Twitter accounts being suspended and prominent YouTube channels taken down. And I say this to illustrate the depth of the suppression and the repression that the Indian government engages in with regards to its most vulnerable minority community. I'm going to skip over this just for time's sake and jump right into the topic of Hindutva and tech. So when we talk about Hindutva in tech, when we say this phrase, it's actually a twofold issue. We mean, on the one hand, the issue of Hindutva's weaponization of technology to spread hate speech, calls for genocide and propaganda on behalf of India's ruling party. Here's a quote we have from Francis Haugen, who is a former Facebook employee and whistleblower who exposed the company in 2021 for promoting violent and hateful content through its algorithm in a way that benefited extremists in countries like India. Haugen actually says that she became concerned with India even in the first 2 weeks she was with the company, noting that fear-mongering and anti-Muslim narratives were rampant on Facebook. leaked internal Facebook documents actually say that there were a number of dehumanizing posts comparing Muslims to pigs and dogs, as well as other misinformation. And all this was being spread by Hindu supremacist groups. On the flip side, when we talk about Hindutva in tech, we also mean the issue of Hindutva supporters and their power within the American tech sector, to the point where they've established a hidden caste system within Silicon Valley and beyond. Here's a quote given to Vice News from a Dalit employee working in California, where she says, caste discrimination is in every U.S. company where Indians are working. There is social seclusion, and with a right-wing government in both India and the United States, casteist supremacists have become even more bold than they were before. So how did we get into this mess in which tech companies, whether by policy or corporate culture, have become so deeply beholden to the politics of the far-right Indian government? I know I've been saying this word Hindutva, 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 but what is Hindutva? In order to understand the broader problem, you need to understand the ideology behind it. So in very simple terms, Hindutva, or Hindu nationalism, as you might have seen it referred to in the news, is a right-wing political ideology that was modeled off of World War II era European fascism, including Nazism. It does not refer, as some claim, to just Hinduness or Hindu identity. It is entirely separate from Hinduism as a religion. If you were to boil down Hindutva's core views, you could summarize it into 3 points. The first being that Hindus, especially upper caste Hindus, are by default superior over non-Hindus. Minorities, specifically Muslims, by the way, there are 200 million of them in India. Hindu supremacists believe that minorities should be stripped of their human rights, reduced to second-class citizens, and subjected to mass violence, including genocide. And last but not the least, Hindu supremacists believe that India should not be a secular democracy as mandated by its constitution, but it should be a Hindu theocratic ethno-state. So here you see a quote from one of Hindutva's founding thought leaders, V.D. Savarkar. I'm not going to go too much into these quotes, but you see here that Hindutva got its start, again, very explicitly modeling itself off European fascism. You see here Savarkar referring to the Holocaust as this tonic that the health of Germany demanded, so very explicitly genocidal in nature. Similarly, you have M.S. Golwalkar, who was one of the, another founding thought leader of Hindu supremacy, and also one of the earliest leaders of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, which is the largest paramilitary group in the world, and certainly the largest Hindu supremacist paramilitary group in India, where he says minorities must be wholly subordinated to the Hindu nation, claiming nothing, deserving no privileges, not even citizens' rights. You might not have heard of Savarkar and Golwalkar before today, but you've certainly heard of Mahatma Gandhi. And maybe you've heard of Mahatma Gandhi's killer, Nathuram Godse. Godse was actually a former member of the RSS. And he actually says during his trial, when he stood convicted of shooting Gandhi, he said, "I have no doubt that honest writers of history will weigh my act and find the true value thereof someday in the future." And unfortunately, Godse's prediction came to pass. We now see that Hindutva has gone from this fringe ideology, the RSS, from this group that was banned multiple times throughout modern Indian history, into this ideology that's become sort of the bedrock of how India governs itself today. So who spreads Hindutva? You can see here in the top corner over there, that is Narendra Modi, who really tipped the scales when he came to power in 2014. He is the current Prime Minister of India, and he was actually a member of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the RSS, from the age of 8 years old. So he is a deeply radicalized man. And Modi is the reason that Hindu supremacy has been turned from a fringe movement into essentially state policy. And this visceral hatred of Muslims, regardless of where they are in the world, has grown exponentially in India. So in modern India, to summarize, you have the prime minister, the ruling party, paramilitary groups that are able to kill and destroy with impunity, a biased judiciary, mainstream media that functions solely as a bullhorn for propaganda, a large number of civilians who have demonized the people they're oppressing to the point where they simply don't care what happens to them, all playing a role in implementing this dangerous ideology into the fabric of Indian governance and everyday life. So if that sounds kind of familiar, you might be thinking a little bit of Israel, where you have a deeply radicalized state government harboring deeply radicalized people and encouraging them to further in their violence against minorities. So Here's a little bit of a snapshot of what Hindutva looks like in India. You see attacks on Muslim citizenship rights. You see mob violence and lynchings happening with increasing frequency. In fact, in the past 24 hours alone, there was one man beaten to death. His name was Qureshi. I believe it was in the state of Bihar. His brother remains in critical condition after being attacked by a mob of 50 Hindu militants. You see the criminalization of conversion away from Hinduism to faiths like Islam and Christianity. Of course, we mentioned the hate speech and calls for genocide. There is rampant censorship, as I mentioned earlier, crackdowns on dissent, on protest. Historic masajid all over India, we're talking 500-600 years old, being the target of demolitions or calls for them to be turned from masajid into Hindu temples. We see the criminalization of Muslim expressions of faith, such as wearing the hijab, such as calling the adhan even, and we see a lot of voter suppression, especially within the past year. And in the United States, Hindutva also has a presence. You might be surprised to hear that this presence is several decades old now at this point. It actually began in the 1970s. But here, like with Zionism, you see this network of far-right groups in the US working to further this ideology and embed it alongside the American far-right. So you'll see that these groups will often maintain ties with Indian militant groups like the RSS. The RSS has an American wing that operates here as a cultural organization. You'll see things like blatant collaborations with the American far-right. You'll see them spreading propaganda and hate speech that essentially boosts the ruling party in India. Attacking civil rights protections, again seeking crackdowns on free speech, showing hate symbols, attacking American education, and allying with movements like Zionism. So now that we've given you all that background, it's time to talk for real now about how Hindutva weaponizes tech. So the goal here is to further the agenda of Hindutva, whether that is support for anti-Muslim violence, influencing elections, or simply covering up the BJP's blunders through online hate speech and disinformation. And so for simplicity's sake, I'm going to break down the infrastructure of this online hate machine into two parts. The first being the BJP IT cell and its affiliated army of trolls, and the second being cooperation with and intimidation of American social media companies. The BJP IT cell, let's start with that. This is a digital apparatus of India's ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, the BJP, which is responsible for managing its online presence and shaping public opinion through social media. It has become notorious for employing, like quite literally paying an army of trolls, aka young BJP supporters and others, across India to engage in coordinated campaigns to promote party narratives and harass critics. And it's very easy to catch yourself on the wrong side of the Hindutva troll army. All you have to do is be outspoken against Modi, the BJP, or Hindutva. A great example of the troll army in action and affecting people in the United States is from 2021, after a group of scholars and activists organized a virtual event titled the Dismantling Global Hindutva Conference. After this conference was announced, by the way, it was co-sponsored by over 53 universities in the US and internationally. So a big deal type of conference. But after it was announced, far-right Hindus protested by sending nearly 1 million emails to co-sponsoring universities. Often these emails were filled with anti-Muslim slurs, other forms of hate speech, and also threats of violence. And over 63,000 tweets were made about the conference, the majority of them coming from Hindu nationalists in India. That includes tweets made by high-profile Hindu supremacists, including BJP leader Kapil Mishra. His tweet is up here. If you can't read Hindi, don't worry. Google Translate is your friend. One of Mishra's tweets regarding the conference actually called Hindutva terror for terrorists and declared that war will be a blistering blow on the cheeks of those who dream of dismantling Hindutva. The post garnered over 54,000 likes and 23,000 retweets. And Mishra is not the only BJP leader who plays an active role in riling the Hindutva base. This is a system that pumps out hate from the top down, and man, there are a lot of people at the top engaging in hate. Here you can see this platform called Hindutva Profiles. Basically, it catalogs different prominent Hindu supremacists who are known for spreading hate on social media. As you can see here, a lot of these people are BJP elected officials. They are people who have been voted into office. The Center for the Study of Organized Hate found in 2024, BJP leaders and affiliated groups use Facebook Live, YouTube Live, and X Live to broadcast hate speech at election rallies and public events. Of 259 recorded instances of dangerous speech, including explicit calls for violence, 219 were first shared or live streamed on social media, of which Facebook accounted for around 75%. And you'll also see that, like Zionists, Hindu supremacists play a key role in the global Islamophobia network, to the point where a 2019 study found that 55% of all anti-Muslim social media posts globally originated in India. That is a staggering amount. And the problem has only gotten worse since then, because in 2024, during India's general elections, the research group India Hate Lab reported that anti-Muslim hate surged by a staggering 74%. You can see here that Zionist hate speech often mirrors Hindutva hate speech. I won't go too far into it, but you'll see that often Hindutva hate speech uses these talking points like the Muslim is the enemy to the Hindu, to the Jew, to the white person, and to all of civilization. And none of this is being addressed by social media platforms. So what's the reason why these platforms are so overrun with hate speech? Why won't they take these posts down in Modi's India when we know they have the power to do so? And the simple answer is, it's profitable to promote hate, and it hurts the company's bottom line to stand up to fascist governments. It's complicity for the sake of profit. And I'll go through a few examples here. Years out after Francis Haugen's damning reports, here's Facebook approving political advertisements from this year, or sorry, from 2024, that call Muslims vermin that deserve to be burned. These are political ads being run in support of the BJP. And here's India's Facebook policy head, Ankhi Das, who made headlines in 2020 when a Wall Street Journal report found that Facebook failed to delete anti-Muslim posts made by BJP leaders. In fact, Ankhi Das told Facebook employees that punishing violations by politicians from Modi's party would damage the company's business prospects in the country. You can't get much more blatant than that. And as for free speech absolutist Elon Musk, here's him folding like a paratha before Narendra Modi's frequent requests for the takedown of content that is critical of the government. And he says here, if we have a choice of either our people go to prison or we comply with the laws, we'll comply with the laws. And comply he does, because X frequently blocks thousands upon thousands of social media accounts that are critical of Modi. It even goes as far as to block content from prominent news sites. And in fact, IAMC has the great honor of also being having our Twitter account withheld in India for, I think, a few years now. So badge of honor, but quite unfortunate at the same time. Additionally, you have Instagram and YouTube, which have become go-to platforms to promote cow vigilantism or organize militia violence against primarily Muslim men in the name of protecting cows, which are seen as sacred in Hinduism from being slaughtered. These videos often involved cameras being shoved in the faces of men who are being beaten, humiliated, or otherwise in distress. And sometimes these videos show victims in the moments before they die of their injuries. These videos are allowed to circulate on these platforms without any consequences. And in fact, there are plenty of examples of this violent content actually being rewarded across different platforms. A couple examples here. Mainstream news personality Suresh Javanke once posted on X asking his hundreds of millions of followers if he should shoot a group of Muslims. He has been reported countless times. He has yet to be banned. Monu Manesar is a well-known Hindu militant who is accused of orchestrating an extremely horrific mob lynching of two Muslim men in 2023. He has yet to be punished for that legally, but he also actually received a gold play button from YouTube for running a massively popular channel that films and glorifies cow vigilante attacks against Muslims. And another influential Hindu militant, Bittu Bajrangi, I know this picture's a little blurry, but here he is posing with an axe. Bittu Bajrangi uploaded hate speeches to social media that played a direct role in triggering mass violence in the state of Haryana in 2023. Posts offering firearms for sale in Hindu militant Facebook groups in India have gone untouched. Facebook only decided to delete these groups after the Wall Street Journal inquired into the posts. And unfortunately, this type of rampant disinformation and hate speech also leads to violence and tension globally. Here we have a picture from the city of Leicester in the United Kingdom, where you saw social media posts being circulated among British Hindu nationalists that resulted in violence in the city in 2022. Okay, I've talked a lot about how Hindutva weaponizes tech, the online ecosystem in order to further its ideology. But since we're in the great state of California, we also have to talk about Hindu supremacists in the tech sector and how this impacts the culture within the industry. And this impact can be summarized quite succinctly with a quote from the great Indian freedom fighter and anti-caste revolutionary Bhimrao Ambedkar, who once wrote, "If Hindus migrate to other regions on Earth, Indian caste would become a world problem." So what is the caste system? The caste system is the oldest form of social hierarchy in the world. It consists of graded levels of alleged purity based on birth, placing people within a certain hierarchy and leaving those in the lowest tier, called Dalits or formerly untouchables, subject to abuse, attacks, and systemic social exclusion. And it affects 1 billion people globally, despite the fact that India has banned caste discrimination, at least technically on paper it is banned. And it also affects around 5.7 million South Asian Americans. So it's quite a widespread problem here in the United States. Caste in America was carried over from India by Brahmin Indians, aka the quote-unquote highest caste, via immigration. It exists, as we saw from that quote given to Vice News, in virtually every major company where Indian Americans work, and it is unfortunately complicated by the lack of specific protections for caste-oppressed people. So there is no law in the state of California as of right now that protects people explicitly from caste-based discrimination. Silicon Valley's hidden caste system can take the form of discrimination in hiring, a toxic workplace culture, sexual harassment, caste slurs, and demotions or firings, all based on caste. And often companies' HR departments are not familiar enough with casteism, or they might employ caste individuals within these departments that are meant to enforce these rules. So it becomes quite difficult to support, and people who are victims of it are often trapped within the system, not knowing how to get help. We have here a few quotes. Again, I feel like the best way to illustrate the issue is to hear from the voices of those who are affected. So here we have a quote from Suresh, a Dalit engineering student who spoke to, I believe this was either to Vice or to Wired a few years ago, where he says, "I've seen IBM contractors openly talking down to the lower castes, saying that these people don't deserve to be here." Meanwhile, Siddhant, a Dalit employee at Facebook, said it is very, very dangerous to reveal one's identity even to any person, because to reveal one's surname or any other identifying information can result in caste-based discrimination. The prime example of all of this coming to a head is in 2020 when the California Civil Rights Department sued Cisco Systems and 2 of its engineers on behalf of a Dalit employee, and 2 of its engineers, on behalf of 1 Dalit employee. The engineers were sued alongside Cisco Systems. And this employee reported being subjected to caste-based discrimination and harassment. And this was historic because it sparked this nationwide conversation on caste discrimination on a scale that hadn't really been seen before. And within weeks of the lawsuit being announced, more than 250 Dalits from Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, Netflix, and dozens of others in Silicon Valley came forward to report discrimination, bullying, ostracization, and other forms of harassment by colleagues who are higher caste Indians. This is according to data provided to Vice News by Dalit advocacy group Equality Labs. I do want to mention that there were also complaints recorded from employees at Dell, Uber, and Lyft, as well as dozens of other Silicon Valley companies that were a bit smaller, but those are also equally important to mention. The Cisco case, it is still ongoing, so the case against the engineers has been dropped. However, Cisco, the company, still faces the lawsuit till today. We're going to see, inshallah, how that unfolds, but it is a very important case. I think it's great for people in California to keep their eyes on it. One thing that's important to mention, though, that this doesn't just impact Dalits in the tech sector. Actually, the Indian American Muslim Council conducted a community survey back in 2023, 2024, in which we surveyed almost 1,000 Indian Americans from across the country, and we talked to them about facing the impacts of Hindu nationalism in their everyday lives. So we talked to them about facing Hindu nationalism in social settings, online, and also in the workplace. And 37% of those people we surveyed reported that in the past 10 years, so the 10 years since Modi came to power, they had regularly or occasionally experienced some harassment, discrimination, or prejudice based on their religion from Hindu colleagues in the US. Now, this didn't specifically only talk to people in the tech sector, but given that a lot of us do tend to be in tech, I think it is still a statistic that's important to keep in mind when having this conversation. This is pretty much the summary of Hindutva in technology, how it's impacting people in the United States. I do want to leave some time for Q&A, so I'm just going to very quickly touch on how we're fighting back. I want to first and foremost say that fascist ideologies are weak, and the easiest way to defeat them is through education and awareness, of which you all have very kindly taken the time today to do for yourselves. So we thank you, Jazakallah khair, for coming out to learn more about the problem of Hindutva, Hindu supremacy, and the ways in which it affects our community on a daily basis. I want to end on a quote from the Indian Muslim freedom fighter, which I feel like he has a great prescription for all those who are locked into this fight against things like toxic nationalism, things like majoritarianism, where he stands on the steps of the historic Jama Masjid in Delhi, and he addresses the fear that Muslims are facing at the prospect of being turned into a minority in the face of being turned into a vulnerable group. And he says here, brothers, I do not have a new prescription for you. I have the same old prescription that was revealed to the greatest benefactor of mankind, the prescription of the Holy Quran. Do not fear and do not grieve. If you possess true faith, you will gain the upper hand. Last but not least, I want to point you to some resources. Our friends over at equalitylabs.org and AKSC USA, that stands for Ambedkar King Study Circle USA, are both Dalit activist groups who put out incredible work on a daily basis. Equality Labs does a lot of amazing work here in the Bay Area. AKSC has a caste help hotline that they recently launched. If you go to their website, it will be the first thing that you see. If you have any coworkers or colleagues or friends who are vulnerable to that sort of discrimination, I highly recommend you pass that on. Please also visit IAMC.com if you want to get talking points on how to speak about Hindutva to anyone in your life, whether that be people who are hostile or people who just want to know better. We have FAQs, we have resources, and of course we have people you can contact in order to learn more. WeAreSevere.org is our coalition, which we are a proud member of. It puts out a lot of research on American Hindutva and the impact on people here in the United States. Our friends at Hindus for Human Rights do a lot of work to push progressive values within the Hindu community, and they're a great resource for any Hindu friends of yours who might want to learn more. And last, we have the Hindutva Harassment Field Manual, which can help you if you're facing any sort of harassment. Lastly, give us a follow on social media, and I will now pass it over to Nuha. If you know any young people in your lives, or if you have any young people here in the audience, we have a new initiative that we're launching that they might be interested in.
Assalamu alaikum, everyone. My name is Nuha, as I mentioned earlier. We are launching the Indian American Muslim Youth Council. As Sister Safa so beautifully put, a revolution and a movement cannot be created by just one person. It takes a ummah. And what better to lead a revolution or a movement than the youth of our nation? So we are going to be launching the Indian American Muslim Youth Council, as I've said. Essentially what it's going to focus on is grassroots efforts in terms of advocacy and education to mobilize the community against anti-Hindutva here in the United States, inshallah. So if you yourself are interested, or if you have kids, or if you know of anybody who would be interested, feel free to scan the QR code and send them the form or fill it out yourself, inshallah. Jazakumullah khair.
Also happy to take any questions if you have them.
Please give Sister Safa a big round of applause. She came all the way from North Carolina to have this event in Bay Area. Thank you so much, Sister Safa, for doing this wonderful work. So as they said, please volunteer, come forward. This work is very important. As you have seen, she has beautifully explained how exactly they are influencing it here, right? And so this is very, very, very needed. I request all of you to please help, come forward, support. And we are having another event tomorrow at MCA. We are having Yogendra Yadav. I don't know how many people know him, but he is a political analyst coming from India. So we have an event at MCA in the Mariam Banquet Hall. Evening 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. Dinner will be served there, so please come. If you have time or if you have your friends there, please tell them, because he's a very good analyst and psephologist, so I'm sure you will learn a lot there. And I think you have a program also, like this week. How many did you do?
Actually, we wrapped up our whole week. Alhamdulillah, thanks to, first of all, I have to shout out Noha for organizing this entire speaking tour for me all the way from North Carolina. But alhamdulillah, we held events at Stanford University, at UC Santa Cruz. Last month we were at UC Berkeley as well. There was one more, SFSU, that's the one. But yeah, alhamdulillah, this was our final event of the week, and I do hope to come back, inshallah, if you all will.
When are you leaving? Tomorrow?
Oh, no, Monday.
Monday, okay.
I have an akika to go to.
Yeah, big round of applause to Sister Noah also. She just joined recently and doing a wonderful job in terms of bringing awareness. We are all like uncles doing the job, but now this young generation have taken up. So, mashallah, doing a wonderful work in taking this talk, taking this awareness to all different universities in Berkeley, Stanford, and we had an event at West Valley Masjid also the other day. So mashallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you all for doing this wonderful work. Thank you so much. Brothers and sisters, please join IAMC and, please play. Everybody has some or the other specialization which they can work on. You can write blogs, you can bring awareness, you can talk about it, you can help us in many different ways. So please volunteer. It is not that only youth should come forward. We have been running this organization from last 22 years. So please come forward and help us wherever you can. And as you have seen that, she used a word called as coalition. That is very, very, very important. And that had been a very big success for organization, because once we formed, this organization was formed only because we have worked a lot with other different organizations, 48 different organizations. We brought them together on one platform when Modi wanted to visit United States after Gujarat. Okay, and we gave the name as Coalition Against Genocide, and we educated the Condoleezza Rice, who was the Secretary of State at that time, to deny his visa. Okay, so there's a lot of work which we have done as Muslims in the forward, but then working together with Sikhs, non-Muslims, meaning Sikhs, as well as Dalits, as she pointed out, Christians, and also like-minded Hindus. Mr. Ajit Sai is our Associate Director. He is a Hindu, but he is our Associate Director of Advocacy. As a Hindu, he is working and going and talking about Muslims at Capitol Hill to all the congressmen, senators. We work closely with United States Commission of International Religious Freedom. We go and educate at United Nations Human Rights Commission, give representations there in terms of what is happening with Muslims in India. So there is a lot of work which is going on behind the scenes. This is just a glimpse of one thing which you have seen, but there is a tremendous amount of work which is going. And Sister Safa is part of our media relations team. She has written wonderful articles which has been covered in Times Magazine.
That was
the...
Rashid Bhai, actually.
Okay, and what about yours? Who are
Jacobin Magazine, Progressive Magazine, Al Jazeera Journalism Review, among several others. The Diplomat. Oh yeah, that was another. That was the podcast that we did, alhamdulillah.
Which one you said, sister?
Genocide Watch. We've we've done interviews with SPLC as well as the Southern Poverty Law Center, etc. Are there? Okay, I would like to see if there's any questions, inshallah.
Yeah, sure.
If you have any, yes, brother.
Thank you. First of all, excellent presentation. You packed a lot in a very short amount of time, so kudos. And especially after a week of speaking engagement, so that says a lot. My question is, because I think this topic is so critical in terms of Hindutva in tech. You're here in Silicon Valley. Has there been any outreach that IAMC has done with regards to educating, like HR groups within or HR organizations within these tech companies about this kind of phenomenon that we're seeing within tech companies. Because I think, like, especially, I mean, I work in tech, I work here in Silicon Valley. There's a lot of Muslims who are in very high-ranking positions, within the tech sector, and I imagine you could find a lot of support to being able to come in and do like presentations to HR groups and things like that. So has there been some development in that regard?
There absolutely has been. Actually, this is something that we do tend to let our friends in caste-based work take the lead. So our friends at Equality Labs and AKSC, as well as several other groups, they do frequent trainings, reaching out to HR departments of places like Google and Microsoft, etc. They have interesting stories of actually facing people who are combative when they go in to do these sensitivity trainings, people who actually try to get these trainings canceled because they say it's like quote unquote anti-Hindu and stuff like that. But there is work being done. IAMC often provides like a more supportive role, but especially in the aftermath of our own community survey where we've seen these incredible numbers of people saying like I face Hindu supremacist harassment in my workplace. We are working on developing more pathways, inshallah, into doing more education, not just in tech, but also in general to like within the workplace. How can we better protect Muslims from this kind of discrimination? Jazakallah khair for your question. I think you can throw it. Oh, just kidding. Walaikum salam.
So I'm wondering if you have any data of like the percentage of the Hindutva sentiment within the Hindu community in America, and particularly in tech. And the reason I ask is because for the most part, my colleagues are very professional, and I don't really see it.
Yeah.
Occasionally there are comments that you see from people like, oh, that's a little bit shocking, but it's rare. So I'm wondering, is it just hidden, or is it like, only a very small percentage?
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I don't know specifically with regards to tech if there's been a survey done on that. There is a survey that was recently done by ISPU. You'll forgive me for blanking on what that acronym stands for, but it is a Muslim Research Institute that did a survey on Hindu supremacist attitudes within the United States. I want to say the Carnegie did a survey as well recently where they found some quite interesting data. There was a shift overall among younger Indian Americans, that are shifting rightward. With that comes this increased support for this kind of ideology, but there was also less support for Modi than I believe that we had expected. So I want to say like it was something around a third of these of the Indian American community expressed support for Modi and his policies in India, which is still a sizable chunk, especially when you think of like, the overall wealth and power of the Indian American community. But it's not a hopeless situation either. So I wish I did have better numbers for you in tech, but I will say that it's not a majority of people who are supporting this discriminatory ideology.
Yeah, I guess what you touched upon, the hidden part of it is also there. It is there inside. If you see previously, there were never, kind of the Diwali celebrations you might have seen, they have increased. Previously, we haven't seen anything like that. Now I'm hearing that, for Eid, there is some sort of a restriction, but then Diwali has become kind of a, we can celebrate that. People are, especially at a tech sector in all the companies, if you see, and they want to influence that ideology, by going there. And of course, if you see previously, like 10, 15 years back, we have never seen that kind of racism. Even now when they talk, it's very clean, you may not find it, but when you go more deeper into it, there is definitely those kind of discussions happening.
Jazakallah khair, Senpai.
Yeah.
Yeah, what you mentioned about Diwali, one thing I can connect, like recently, we see suddenly a surge of Diwali celebrations in tech companies. I hope like you might also have noticed, like 10 years ago it wasn't that much compared to like 4 or 5 years. So in one of the Diwali events, one of the employees, like he was explaining to the American employees like why they celebrate the Diwali, and that is the homecoming of Lord Ram to Ayodhya, and you can connect that to the Babri Masjid judgment. I wanted to say that.
Any other question? Do the sisters have anything that? Nope. Sorry, not to put you all on the spot.
We can take one more question, yeah.
Yeah. Oh no, I had a question. Dang. I'll get you later.
Assalamu alaikum. So, do you have any statistics, like any discrimination during the hiring process? Because I attended one of our Imam Aladdin Al-Bakri's presentation at MCA back in 2018, and he mentioned actually, this is happening right now. That time I'm talking about, and he mentioned that is very true, and a lot of Muslims are just by name, see the name on resume. They simply drop the resume, they will not even invited for the interview. So do you have any such statistics or anything, or reported incidents or anything?
Great question. Actually, I will say that research on Hindutva attitudes in the United States and its impact on people is very, very new. IAMC survey, the one that I just mentioned to you, that is the first of its kind done on the impact of Hindutva specifically on Indian American Muslims. So unfortunately, there aren't a lot of statistics to go off of. This is like very new ground that we're covering. And it's been very recent that we're seeing Hindutva have this like very public face of being something we can point to as this like actual powerful phenomena, or with some degree of power in the United States. So unfortunately, I don't have specific stats for you, but inshallah, I do foresee that a lot more research will be coming out about Hindutva in the very near future. I think I can take one more question if there's 3 minutes.
I have one question.
Yeah.
So, as a student, I'm not a tech major, but I have friends who are tech majors. So what advice would you have for them if they are going into tech, and how can they navigate Hindutva in tech if they do come across it?
Great question. I would say check out the Hindutva Harassment Field Manual. This was put together by several friends of not just IAMC, but friends of our coalition partners in the advocacy space. This was put together by academics specifically who know a lot about Hindutva and its manifestations in the US. So check that out for a lot of resources. It'll help a lot.
Inshallah. Jazakallah khair. Thank you for everybody coming here, and this was amazing. You want to say something?
Oh, no, I'm done. Jazakallah khair for having me.
All right, thank you so much. I think we are ready for the namaz. And once again, Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Thank you for the great work you're doing, sister. Brother, may Allah bless you all.